Hi everyone, I'm here in Parliament House with Dr. Andy Schmuller. Hello Andy.
Hi everybody.
We've come up this week, first sitting of the new Parliament, to try and hold the Albanese government accountable for bank branch closures, given that there's a Senate report from 14 months ago that has the solution and the government has ignored it. And one of the towns that's about to lose its bank is Queenstown in Tasmania. And it's not just the last bank in Queenstown, it's the last bank for the entire west coast of Tasmania. And these branch closures are Anthony Albanese's and Jim Chalmers' responsibility because they're ignoring this report. The Citizens Party made an important contribution to that inquiry, as did Andy when the inquiry was running. Andy's recommendations were included in the final report. Andy, what are we trying to get these members of Parliament to actually understand?
So we have a report issued by a Senate committee 14 months ago. The government is under a legal obligation to respond to that report within 90 days. 14 months have passed and there's been no response. And what we've seen from Bendigo Bank, the so-called big little bank, the bank that touts its credentials as having its roots in being a community bank, is that these greedy bastards who are making record profits. Remember, our banks are the most profitable banks in the world now. These greedy bastards who bang on about being a community-orientated bank and bang on about how their roots are in community banking, and even though they have a lease agreement for their branch that goes until June of next year, they've decided to shut this branch without adequate consultations, and in the process they will plunge the whole of the west coast of Tasmania into an economic wipeout. And I think it's time we held chief executives accountable. I think it's time we held the chief executive of Bendigo Bank personally accountable. I think it's time we held every member of the board of directors of Bendigo Bank personally accountable. Bendigo Bank received taxpayer-funded support during the global financial crisis. Bendigo Bank receives taxpayer-funded support on a daily basis because it is understood that the taxpayers underwrite Bendigo Bank's liabilities. The Reserve Bank has estimated that the support that Australian banks receive from the taxpayer is worth $3.7 billion a year. Since the last time we had an inquiry 20 years ago, our banks have saved $74 billion. If Bendigo Bank were to save on its own, were to save $74 billion, which granted this is across the industry, but
Yep.
if Bendigo Bank on its own was to save $74 billion, if they ran a loss of $1 million a year for that branch in Queenstown, they'd be able to keep that branch open for 74,000 years. And the fact that these banks are yet again closing branches, despite the fact that they announced a moratorium on doing so, is demonstrable of the fact that we've got to start holding chief executives personally accountable.
Now Andy, that's the message that we are delivering to these members of Parliament. Now, without being too judgmental about them per se, but it's safe to say that they're not quite on the same page as us, right? They're a bit soft.
They're a little bit soft because they are bought off, because they are suborned, because they are bribed, because they are bullied by the Australian Bankers Association, the ABA, currently led by Anna Bligh, soon to be led by Simon Birmingham. Simon Birmingham, when he takes over at the ABA, will be the chief lobbyist for the banking industry in this country, an industry which has persistently and consistently undermined Australian democracy.
Well, what we've been able to do for Queenstown is talk to a number of the members of Parliament, including Senator Matt Canavan, who chaired the Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport Committee inquiry into bank closures, about advocating for that bank to add to the political pressure to get them to reverse this decision. So hopefully we can pull off something this week that does contribute to saving the last bank on the west coast of Tasmania. If we do though, and this is not to boast, this is just a statement of fact, if we do, this will be the Citizens Party's work, because these are the senators who represent these constituents. We don't. We haven't won the election. They have. These are their constituents. We're bringing the case to them when they should be already all over it. Now they're responding, fairly well, but they should be proactive in this. And it's only when we can make them proactive will we be able to stop the banks, committing such appalling misdeeds against these towns. So anyway, it's been
I'd like to add something that you, the viewers, can do. I won't mention which member of Parliament we were meeting with this morning, But his chief policy advisor said to us, yes, we've been getting a lot of emails about that. We want to do something because we're getting a lot of emails about that. Emails to your member of parliament, emails to your state senators, move the dial. I want to urge you, if you want to help us, if you want to help your fellow Australians in Queenstown, if you want to help yourselves, if you want to make sure that the banks are held to account, find out who your member of parliament is, your federal member of parliament, find out who your state senators are, and write them as many emails as you can demanding that they do something about the federal Senate inquiry into bank branch closures. Demand that they do something about the branch closure in Queenstown.
We're going to use Queenstown as the example to draw a line in the sand here. We've had the inquiry, it addressed the problem, it came up with good recommendations. The only problem is the government ignoring the outcome, right? And so this has to be a line in the sand, and if we can save this bank branch, well and good. If we can't, it adds to the case for the ultimate solution, bring back a public bank in post offices that can serve all these communities. So anyway, we'll sign off here from Canberra today, and you'll be watching this on the Citizens Report and on Dr. Andy Schmuller's YouTube page and other areas. So make comments below, give us any feedback that you can. Share this widely, please, because these are the issues that we have to prosecute to keep making the case that the power of these corporations over our political system must be broken. And the Citizens Party is the party that's leading that fight.
Yep, and get behind your fellow Australians in Queenstown. And when you write those emails, mention that the CEO of Bendigo Bank is Richard Fennell, Fennell, Richard Fennell, and that Richard Fennell must be held personally accountable.
Excellent. And I must say, Andy, I'm pretty impressed with your research on the run there.
My pleasure.
Okay.
I'm paid for.
Signing off from Canberra for this week.
Authorised by Craig Isherwood, Citizens Party, Melbourne.